Hi everyone, this is Ben Colby, Teen Librarian with Enoch Pratt, and this is a beginner level Tinkercad video today to create an imposter from the game Among Us. Here's one that's already done. I'm going to start one from scratch. But when you get into Tinkercad for the first time, you'll have to create an account. You can always get back to your dashboard by clicking this rainbow icon, and I'm just going to create a new design. So in case you've been living in a cave for the last year, Among Us is this super popular game about backstabbing and betrayal and tricking people. I'm going to start with a cylinder. So I just grab the shape over from my menu and drag it over. And just thinking about size, 25 millimeters, and you're looking at millimeters here. 25 millimeters is an inch, so I'm just going to stretch this leg up a little bit to be a little more than an inch. I guess we want the total figure to be maybe 3 inches. And the legs are a little pointy of the actual game characters, but I'm making it flat, and the reason for that is when we do 3D printing, it's with liquid. We use liquid plastic, and it can get a little funky. Stuff doesn't always form exactly the way you want. And one thing that really helps is if you have flat surfaces on the bottom, and if you can connect your pieces a little bit, just like this, with a tiny overlap, that's going to make both of them much stronger because it's like they're leaning on each other for strength. And you really can't even tell the difference. So I would definitely suggest creating the legs this way. So let's start with the body. There are different ways to do this using these shapes, but I'm going to start with a half sphere shape for the top and the bottom and a cylinder shape. I guess, I don't know, if you like the paraboloid shape better, it's a little pointier. Because you could, well, if I squish it down to the same size, you can see it's a little flatter. Oh, I kind of like that actually. So what I'm going to do is just drag this off to the sides, lift it up to a certain height, and let's use the paraboloid for the top. And I'm just going to drag it up. I'm going to drag it over to here. You may need to use the undo button when you're moving stuff around. You may also need to move the camera around so that you can see what you're looking at. And I also just hit the F key to zoom in on my selection if your camera gets uncentered. And I'm using the arrow keys right now. I guess I could lift. I want it to still be overlapping a little bit, so that's fine. And I can just kind of flatten that. Great. And so let's use this one for the bottom. I could use this and just flip it over, but let's use this one and flip it over. I'm going to use the mirror button over here, or the M key. I click the up and down arrow. That flips it over. I turn mirror mode off. And then let's get this roughly into position. So I'm going to lift it off the ground. I'm going to look around with the camera, use the arrow keys if I'm close. Oops. I am pretty close. And by the way, the colors that you see here don't make any difference. All that matters is what we load into the printer. Okay, I think I've got that lined up. And I think I've got the top one lined up. So I'm going to drag a box over these three all together. You can see that they're a lot smaller than the legs, but they all take the same color now because they're all the same shape. So I'm going to move this over to about where it needs to be. I'm going to hold the Shift key while I resize it to avoid warping. A little bigger. This guy has kind of a hat. I'm not sure if I like that paraboloid shape, but we'll go with it. Try not to warp it. Keep him circular. I'm going to go a little bigger. And then just try to recenter on the legs a little bit. And look around from different angles. I'm going to have him sitting a little forward on the legs because we are going to have a backpack on there. Okay. And you know what? That's kind of bugging me. I'm going to ungroup it. I'm going to click off to the side. And actually, I can just line it up perfectly with the top. You want to be careful when you do this to make sure it's not separated. But I want a little bit less overlap. And I'm going to regroup that. I like that a lot better. And I can actually group all of this. Okay, so let's add the other elements of this. I'm going to drag a box over. And this radius slider in the shape menu, what this does is round off the edges. And I want to do that for this design. Let's round off these edges. So I'm going to drag this to about where it needs to be using my controls. And I can use the arrow keys for fine adjustments. That's pretty good. It's a little too wide because it's a visor. I think we've got a pretty good visor here. And then I could do the same thing with the box to create the backpack, but I'm just going to duplicate this one. Control D. Actually, let me delete the duplicate. One easy way to do this is hold the Alt key if you have a keyboard and drag. Alt and drag creates a copy of something. And whenever your camera gets off center, hit F again. All right, so I'm just going to move this into the back a little bit. It's going to be a taller shape and it's going to be lower down. Do we want the backpack to stick out a little more? Yeah. And I think we want it to be a little wider too. It's okay to stick stuff out a little bit from the print. I think that'll be fine. I'm going to lower this a little bit more and make it bigger. I'm pretty happy with this, but of course, this is just a crewman until we give him a weapon. So let's do that. I'm going to use the scribble shape, and I'm going to use a scribble to kind of create a knife. Got a little butcher knife. Okay. You want to be careful not to make a thing that's actually sharp because you may have this in your living space. But if you see what came out here, it's like a flat cross-section of the shape that I just made. And actually, I'm going to make the knife part a little bigger. And sharper. Okay, pretty good. All right, so then I hit done, and I've got that shape. And I'm just going to try to put this, I'm going to use the rotation controls to try to get it about right. So let's see, where do we start? I am definitely going to want it facing the other way. So I'll mirror it first. And I'm definitely going to want it standing up, maybe pointing forward a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to want it sticking out like this to be roughly in line with his body. All right, see how this looks. I can oops, it's hidden in the body. All right. Looking pretty good. But let's just move that into the body a little more. Make sure you don't lose the bottom. I think I could tip it back this way a little bit. You can always hit undo also to change these things. I don't know. I want it to go this way a little more. That's pretty good. That's at least recognizable as a knife. Okay, so let's group it all together. It'll take the same color. And one thing that you could do is when you're submitting this to me, you could request that I do a color stripe for the visor for when I get up to this point in the print, so that it would look like a headband, which could be kind of fun. And yeah, of course, you can pick your color. The way you would send this to me is select the thing, go to export over here, export the selected shape as STL. And that's a file that you have now that you can attach in an email to me.